When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. I think it is possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. Persistence is very important. You should not give up unless you are forced to give up. The first step is to establish that something is possible. Then probability will occur. You want to have a future where you're expecting things to be better, not one where you're expecting things to be worse. If something is important enough, even if the odds are against you, you should still do it. Failure is an option here if things are not failing. You are not innovating enough. I could either watch it happen or be a part of it. Don't confuse education with school. I didn't go to Harvard, but people who work for me did. The problem is that at a lot of big companies, process becomes a substitute for thinking. If you get up in the morning and think the future is going to be better, it is a bright day. Otherwise, it's not. People should pursue what they're passionate about. That will make them happier than pretty much anything else. When Henry Ford made cheap, reliable cars, people said, "Nah, what's wrong with a horse?" That was a huge bet he made, and it worked. Great companies are built on great products. I do think there is a lot of potential. If you have a compelling product and people are willing to pay a premium for that, I think that's what Apple has shown. I think the best way to attract venture capital is to try and come up with a demonstration of whatever product or service it is, and ideally take that as far as you can. I think it is possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. It's okay to have your eggs in one basket as long as you control what happens to that basket. I say something, and then it usually happens. Maybe not on schedule, but it usually happens. You shouldn't do things differently. Just because they're different, they need to be better. It's very important to have a feedback loop where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you could be doing it better. Talent is extremely important. It's like a sports team. The team that has the best individual player will often win, but then there's a multiplier from how those players work together and the strategy they employ. Some people don't like change, but you need to embrace change if the alternative is a disaster. I don't think it's a good idea to plan to sell a company. Failure is an option here if things are not failing. You are not innovating enough. We have a strict no assholes policy at SpaceX. The path to the CEO's office should not be through the CFO's office, and it should not be through the marketing department. It needs to be through engineering and design. Really pay attention to negative feedback and solicit it, particularly from friends. Hardly anyone does that, and it's incredibly helpful. Persistence is very important. You should not give up unless you are forced to give up. I always have optimism, but I'm realistic. It was not with the expectation of great success that I started Tesla or SpaceX. It's just that I thought they were important enough to do anyway. I think most of the important stuff on the internet has been built. There will be continued innovation for sure, but the great problems of the internet have essentially been solved. I think the best way to attract venture capital is to try and come up with a demonstration of whatever product or service it is, and ideally take that as far as you can. You have to be pretty driven to make it happen. Otherwise, you will just make yourself miserable. I don't create companies for the sake of creating companies. but to get things done. When I was in college, I wanted to be involved in things that would change the world. I think we have a duty to maintain the light of consciousness, to make sure it continues into the future. You want to be extra rigorous about making the best possible thing you can. Find everything that's wrong with it and fix it. Seek negative feedback, particularly from friends. You have to say, well, why did it succeed where others did not? It's very important to like the people you work with. Otherwise, life and your job is going to be quite miserable. I think life on Earth must be about more than just solving problems. It's got to be something inspiring, even if it is vicarious. If you're trying to create a company, it's like baking a cake. You have to have all the ingredients in the right proportion. I would like to die on Mars, just not on impact. People work better when they know what the goal is and why. There's a tremendous bias against taking risks. Everyone is trying to optimize their ass covering. I think the best way to attract venture capital is to try and come up with a demonstration of whatever product or service it is, and ideally take that as far as you can. When I was in college, I wanted to be involved in things that would change the world. I think we have a duty to maintain the light of consciousness, to make sure it continues into the future. You guys are the magicians of the 21st century. Don't let anything hold you back. Imagination is the limit. Go out there and create some magic. Take risks now. Do something bold. You won't regret it. To make an embarrassing admission, I like video games. That's what got me into software engineering when I was a kid. I wanted to make money so I could buy a better computer, to play better video games. Nothing like saving the world. There are some important differences between me and Tony Stark. Like I have 5 kids, so I spend more time going to Disneyland than parties. Entrepreneurship is like heating glass and walking on hot coals at the same time. I'm actually making history tonight as the first person with Asperger's to host SNL, or at least the first to admit it. So I won't make a lot of eye contact with the cast tonight. But don't worry, I'm pretty good at running human and emulation mode. In the past I voted Democrat because they were mostly the kindness party, but they have become the party of division and hate. So I can no longer support them and will vote Republican now. Watch their dirty tricks campaign against me unfold. I think that's the single best piece of advice. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better and questioning yourself.